What's up guys, my name is Jedith, and today we got some surprise updates for Havoc Demon Hunter over on the beta. We got a brand new build right before Mythic Plus and raid testing is about to begin, so they mostly pertain to Aldrachi Reaver, so that's where we're going to be sticking for this video, but a lot of them are very impactful. I think there's still more coming. So the very first thing I want to look at is Intent Pursuit. Now this talent used to be cooldown reduction on the hunt. It is now a different talent, which is actually something that I suggested in my feedback post on the forums. This is exactly something that I suggested. Actually, they tweaked it a little bit, but essentially what it does now is anytime you use the hunt, you get a free Reaver's Glaive to use. So what this allows is for you to actually get Reaver's Glaive right away in your opener. Before, we weren't able to, because we would need to collect 6 soul fragments to get Reaver's Glaive, and the only way that we were able to even come close to that was to use Sigil of Spite. Used to be Elysian Decree, it's now called Sigil of Spite, and Soul Sigils. Normally, Sigil of Spite gives you 3 soul fragments. You take Soul Sigils, it adds 1 more onto that, so that's 4. And then because we take Soul Sigils, we were able to use Sigil of Flame to get 1 more, so that would bring us up to 5. Still not enough, right? So we weren't able to get a Reaver's Glaive ready to use in our opener. Well now, as soon as we use the hunt, we get a Reaver's Glaive immediately. So I'll show you. Bam. We get a Reaver's Glaive. They added a new icon for Reaver's Glaive, which is nice. Looks kind of cool. This is a fantastic change. Very good. This not only gives us a Reaver's Glaive for our opener, but we're also just using the hunt every 1.5 minutes, right? We're able to get just more free Reaver's Glaives throughout our entire rotation. And this is going to be excellent. Very good. And you might be a little disappointed to see the hunt cooldown reduction go away, but don't be too upset. I know it's like a fun button to press, but truthfully, it wasn't doing that much damage, even with the cooldown reduction, so it's gonna be okay. The main reason the hunt does so much damage now on retail servers is because of our tier bonus, which is actually doubling the duration of the dot. That's where a lot of the damage is coming from. So even with the previous cooldown reduction of this talent, with the regular 6-second dot, it wasn't doing much. So yeah, this is going to be a much better option for us, and it makes the rotation a lot smoother. So the other thing we'll look at real quick is Army unto Oneself, and this was also changed. This used to be Felblade would surround you with a blade ward, reducing physical damage for 5 seconds. Now this is reducing all damage taken by 10% for 5 seconds. So this is amazing. This gives us another, essentially a active mitigation almost in our rotation that we can use strategically to live through one-shots or just other damage that might be coming out incidentally. So now, not only do we have Deflecting Dance, where you deflect incoming attacks while blade dancing, absorbing damage up to 15% of your maximum health, so that's attached to Blade Dance. Now we also have reduced damage taken by 10% for 5 seconds attached to Felblade. So Felblade is on a 14-second cooldown at the moment. It is hasted, so it's affected by haste. The cooldown will get lower depending on how much haste you have. Felblade can also be reset with Demon Blades, so your auto attacks have a chance to give you a reset on the cooldown of Felblade. And then we're also able to take Unhindered Assault, which is a new hero talent. So Vengeful Retreat resets the cooldown of Felblade. So what we're able to do is Felblade, get the buff, Vengeful Retreat to reset Felblade, and then press Felblade again. So I'll show you what that looks like. Press Felblade, Vengeful Retreat, then Felblade back in. And when we do that, we're not extending the buff past 5 seconds, but we are just refreshing the duration up to 5. So just between all of our regular uses, the resets we get from Demon Blades and resetting it with Vengeful Retreat, we are going to actually end up with that buff pretty often, and it's going to equate, hopefully, to a lot of reduced damage over the course of a fight or even over the course of a Mythic Plus dungeon. Okay, now the next thing I want to highlight is Decisive Blade. So when enhanced, Chaos Strike deals 30% increased damage. This has been the same talent for as long as Aldrachi has been available to us to test, but it has never worked until today. So we'll pull up the combat log, and first we'll just do a regular annihilation. So let me get into demon form and then get some fury. We're gonna annihilation. So you can see hit for main hand and offhand, crit for 204 and offhand 83,000. Okay, so that's just a regular sort of unenhanced or empowered one. Okay, so now what we'll do is I'll get Reaver's Glaive, I'll use it, I'll get into I-Beam, and then I'll press an annihilation, and we should see a difference in the damage that it does. So yeah, Annihilation crit for 290,000, and the offhand hit for 222,000. There's also a lot of other damage bonus increases that we can stack on top of that. So let me continue on with some of the changes, and then you'll start to see how this can compound and really add up to provide us a large increase for our Chaos Strike damage. The next change that we got was for Thrill of the Fight. So after consuming both enhancements, gain Thrill of the Fight, increasing your attack speed by 15% for 20 seconds and your damage and healing by 30% for 10 seconds. So the way this used to work is that extra 30% would only apply to the next single ability cast. And this was problematic because you would get this buff and then you would cast your meta in your opener. Because meta does damage, it would consume that damage buff and it would count that as your one ability. Now that's not the case. So now we just have a 30% increase to all of our damage and healing for 10 seconds, which is pretty insane. So something we have to keep in mind here is escalation. So each successive enhanced ability deals 10% increased damage. The effect of the second enhancement is increased by 100%. So with Reaver's Glaive, when we use a Chaos Strike as the last ability in our pattern, it applies Reaver's Mark and it doubles that effectiveness. So causes the target to take 30% increased damage for 20 seconds rather than just the standard 15. So we're getting 30% from Reaver's Mark, and we're also going to get 30% from Thrill of the Fight. Now the buff from Reaver's Mark lasts 20 seconds and the buff from Thrill of the Fight lasts 10 seconds. So there's 10 seconds of overlap there where you get 60% increased damage on a single target. So Reaver's Mark is only a single target thing. It's like a debuff you put on the one target that you hit with Chaos Strike. And the Thrill of the Fight buff is a buff that you get yourself, and it increases all of your damage by 30%. So essentially, in single target, you're getting a lot of value to end your pattern with Chaos Strike to get that increased Reaver's Mark, 30% on top of 30 to get 60. So that really incentivizes you to end with Chaos Strike in single target. But then in AoE, if you decide to end with Blade Dance, you do 3 additional glaive slashes to nearby enemies. With escalation, if you do Blade Dance last, that turns to 6 additional glaive slashes, and this is completely uncapped. For some reason, the proc on Blade Dance, the extra slashes, the additional slashes, are completely uncapped. So even though there is a target cap on Blade Dance, the extra slashes, the additional slashes are 100% uncapped, which is actually pretty wild. So if we just think back to ending the pattern with Chaos Strike, getting that 10 seconds of 60% increased damage, what else can we stack on top of that? Well, the basics, we could say Essence Break. That's increasing the damage of Chaos Strike by another 80%. So that's 60 on top of 80. Then we have things like Inertia, which is another 18%. If we decide to spec into it, we have things like Serrated Glaive, which is another 15%. We could go into Improved Chaos Strike, which is another 10%. You can see how this can all really add up. We also have Chaos Theory, which I don't know if we would have enough points to go into just yet. There's a lot of possibilities when it comes to our tree. And you can see how all of these damage amps are really adding up to make Chaos Strike actually pretty impactful. And because of our new tier set, we are actually going to be pressing Chaos Strike quite often to fish for Blade Dance resets. So you can see again, just in our tier set, the 4-piece, Chaos Strike deals 20% increased damage. There's another 20% onto Chaos Strike. Now, this isn't just only buffing Chaos Strike here. With the buffs of Thrill of the Fight and getting Reaver's Mark to 30%, and then we can spec into things that are increasing Blade Dance as well. So we also have Dancing with Fate, which is increasing the final slash of Blade Dance by 50%. We have First Blood, can also take things like Restless Hunter. It says leaving demon form grants a charge of Fell Rush and increases the damage of your next Blade Dance by 50%. So you can actually get off some pretty massive Blade Dances or death sweeps with this as well. There have been people in the Demon Hunter Discord who've reported that they've gotten upwards of 2 million damage on their Blade Dances, 2.5 million, and that's only going to increase further and further as we get more gear, because keep in mind, on beta right now, like, our stats are completely trash, right? We have 33% crit, 25% mastery, very little haste. I have 4% haste. Those stats are going to go up, and because of how our talents work, know your enemy and any means necessary, as those stats go up, our damage increases with it. Okay, so I'll show you a little bit of combat here, and pay attention to the floating combat text. You're probably going to see some massive numbers pop up and just a lot of larger numbers than we're used to seeing. So get started here. got Reaver's Glaive back again. Got it. It's proc on our tier set there. Reaver's Glaive again. Now, one of the really cool things about Reaver's Glaive is when you get it to proc like this, you don't necessarily have to use it right away. You can hold on to it and wait until you have things you want to line up with it. So right now I waited, now I have I-beam. You can really make sure you use it exactly when you need it, rather than just being quick about it and making sure you use it ASAP. So yeah, with these new changes, Aldrachi Reaver is actually doing a lot of damage. I do think it might be unintended, the fact that we can stack the 30% increased damage on top of another 30 to get 10 seconds of 60% increased damage. At the moment, it is looking like Aldrachi Reaver is going to be better in single target, strictly because of this Reaver's Mark increased damage on a single target. So the 30% and then the 60% after combining with Thrill of the Fight. That's a large increase for a single target. And then once you start doing Mythic Plus or some more AoE oriented things, you might consider switching to Felscard, where you get those uncapped demon surges, as well as a bunch of other cool stuff with Rage Fire and Immolation Aura. And yeah, I like how it's kind of divided right now. I would like to, you know, in the end, play both of them. I don't want to like only ever play one hero talent tree. I think that's kind of silly. So if they can separate it in a way where they both have their pros and their cons, their strengths and their weaknesses, and we get to experiment with both of them, I think that would be probably the best thing overall for Demon Hunters going forward. So let me know what you guys think. Honestly, it's doing a lot of damage, and you know, whenever a gameplay loop is kind of annoying to play, it can always be salvaged a little bit by just doing a lot of freaking damage. I do think, yeah, like it is kind of strict to play in terms of lining up the buffs. It's not as bad as it used to be. It's not as bad as it was looking like it was going to be, because now we have, you know, Reaver's Mark lasting for 20 seconds and Thrill of the Fight is a 10-second long buff. It could be worse. It could be 5 seconds. That would be really annoying, because then you'd have to line that up with Essence Break. This is 10 seconds, so it should sort of overlap with everything pretty well. So it's not going to be that bad. It is more involved than Felscard, but I think that's okay. A little bit of complexity in a rotation isn't a bad thing, but as of right now, I think this is decent, and it just does a lot of damage. So thumbs up from me, and I'm looking forward to see what else might be coming our way. Make sure you like this video, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Catch you next time. Peace.